is superior. Living in peace after this program, we walk down and walk to our cars and so on. Honorable, you completely misunderstand the world situation. You completely misunderstand it. As a result of what is happening, this aggression that Israel is waging against Iran, our government has decided to suspend the implementation of the levy imposed on fuel, which have enabled us to retire $4 billion worth of debt in the power sector. Do you know the implications of that? The implications of that is that this country may, at a later time, not be able to produce electricity. That means the collapse of our industries, the collapse of our educational institutions, the collapse of our hospitals and everything. So what is happening may appear to be between Israel and Iran, but has devastating consequences on us. And in any case, the nuclear scientists tell us that if they manage to find the right weaponry and attack the nuclear facility at Fudan, the environmental consequences would affect everybody in the world. Every nation in the world will suffer. So it is not true that we are insulated from what is happening there. The consequences would affect us. And that is why it is important for us to speak loudly and clearly that this nonsense must stop. That no nation is superior. That the sovereignty of one nation is not inferior to the sovereignty of another nation, and so on. We must insist upon that. Now, you see, people talk about the right of Israel to exist, and so on. Now, when you're talking about the right of Israel, what geographical dimension are you talking about? Which country is Israel? Israel is the only country in the world which has no fixed borders. You want to challenge that? The only country in the world which has no fixed borders. Every day, every week, every month, every year, it keeps expanding its borders. You understand? So when you're talking about the state of Israel, what is that geographic entity you are referring to? Because as we speak, the Israelis have a plan to annex part of Gaza and add to their territory. As we speak. And this whole thing that is happening in Ghana is about the annexation of more land. Clear, they've said that clearly, they want more land to expand the state of Israel. You understand? Is this something which we should accept? Look, Israel has killed more journalists than have been killed in any war in history. That's also a fact. That's a fact. They've killed more journalists than have been killed in any war in history. They deliberately attack journalists and kill them. And the impunity. And they do it, they don't even hide. They do it so openly and so on. You see, for those of you who support this Zionist regime and so on, I mean, I can't help but pity you. Last week, did you read the statement which was made by the Israeli ambassador in Ghana? How did you feel when you read that statement? Has no respect for our government. Honorable, he has no respect for your government. He has no respect for your president. The Israeli ambassador to Ghana actually calls the press and tells the press that he's disappointed in the government of Ghana. He's disappointed in the government of Ghana. What is the basis of his disappointment? One, that our government pursues a non-aligned policy. And as far as the Israeli ambassador is concerned, Ghana should not be a non-aligned state. And that Ghana should defy the non-aligned movement. What effrontery. He doesn't end there. This Israeli ambassador says that he knows that Ghana belongs to the African Union, But we should not listen to the African Union. We should break ranks to the African Union. What? What impunity? What arrogance? And then he goes on and says we should have nothing to do with the Arab League and so on. This nyati Israeli ambassador in Accra wants to dictate to President Mahama how he should run his foreign policy, how he should run his government. He feels emboldened. You know, he's so big, he's bigger than Mahama, he's bigger than the NDC, he's bigger than our parliament and so on. And you want to support this? Unbelievable. And this arrogance finds expression in everything they do. This belief that they are specially chosen by God is the fundamental thing when it comes to Israeli policy. In any case, Sana, let me say something. Sana, look, the Israelis, not all the Israelis, I mean the Zionists who are in power in Israel, have constantly been insulting God. Take it from me, they have constantly been insulting God. They claim that God created all of us, and after creating all of us, decided to select this small number of Zionists in Israel as his chosen people against the rest of us. Don't you think that that's an insult to God? I mean, what kind of a God will create the world and all its people, including Filipinos, including Argentines, including Brazilians, including Arabs, including Zulus, and so on, Fantis and Ashantis, and so on. And after creating this beautiful mosaic of people and so on, decide that I will support only a small number of them, less than 10 million of them. They are the people I will support against the rest. What kind of God is that? That God must be very partial. That God must be very unfair. So if you believe in this theory of the chosen people, that is how you think. If you believe in this theory of the chosen people, you are insulting God. You think that God is partial, God is not fair, and so on. Think about it. In any case, all those of you who every now and then want to go to Israel for religious pilgrimage and so on, Senna, do you know the birthplace of Jesus, where Jesus was actually born? Do you know that it is not in the modern day Israel? It's in Palestine. So Jesus was Palestinian. Jesus the Christ was Palestinian. He was not an Israeli, he was Palestinian. You understand? Not just that. The Church of Nativity, that is the church which was built on the manger where Jesus was born. It's in Palestine. Do you know something? Pope Francis, before he died, the Pope who recently died, was on telephone call on a daily basis with Gaza. Go and check. Expressing his solidarity with Gaza and so on. Why? There are more Christians in Palestine than there are in Israel. More Palestinians are Christian than Israelis are. This is a fact. You understand? And indeed, there are a lot more Muslims who are citizens of Israel. So this whole confusion and so on, where is it coming from? It comes from ignorance. Ignorance of the facts. Ignorance of religion. Those who read the Bible upside down, they read the Bible upside down and come to all kinds of unrealistic conclusions and so on. But you see, now we don't have all day. We don't have all day. So let me say that war has consequences. And one of the consequences of war is untold suffering, usually for the vulnerable, not the powerful people, not the people in power. You understand? One of war's consequences is the suffering of the vulnerable people in our societies and so on. So, to the extent that it is possible, we must do everything possible to avert war. This particular war has been said by the Secretary General of the United Nations, has been said by all the prominent leaders of the world, can lead to a thermonuclear third world war, whose consequences will be felt by everybody in the world. This particular reckless war that Israel has started can lead to a thermonuclear third world war. This war has already started affecting our pockets and our well-being and so on. Sure. We must do everything possible to bring this war to an end as quickly as possible. And the way to do that is to call a spade a spade. The way to do that is to organize massive solidarity with the victims of this aggression. The way to do that is to end Israeli aggression everywhere. The way to do that is to struggle for the restoration of the rights of the Palestinian people. The way to do that is to support the two-state solution that the whole world, including the United Nations, agrees is the way forward. Now listen, why? Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin sat down and to the displeasure of many people and so on, signed the Oslo Accord, which guaranteed the establishment of an independent state of Israel with security guarantees, alongside the establishment of an independent state of Palestine with security guarantees and so on. The solution to the problem was found by Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister of Israel. What happened after that? People like Benjamin Netanyahu and hawks in Israel killed Yitzhak Rabin. They killed Yitzhak Rabin to destroy that agreement, which would have saved the situation. We are here because Israeli hawks killed Yitzhak Rabin because they didn't want a two-state solution. Recently, Benjamin Netanyahu said that the two-state solution would never happen. It would be over his dead body and so on. They killed Yitzhak Rabin. They killed their own prime minister because he was voting for peace and so on. Now, if they can kill their own prime minister because he was looking for peace, who can they not kill? Let us be realistic. This war must come to an end as quickly as possible. And the way to bring this war to an end is to stop the aggressor. And the aggressor in this case is the Zionist state of Israel. Nobody else.
Thank you.
Is that 9 countries in the world have acquired the power to destroy this world, this earth, 10 times over. Now, to destroy the world once is an unimaginable catastrophe. But to destroy it 10 times over, I don't know how to describe it. So for all who want the preservation of our civilization, for all who want the preservation of life and so on, our duty is to strive for peace. And in striving for peace, we have a commitment to ensure that not just the proliferation of nuclear weapons, but the production of nuclear weapons everywhere is stopped. That's the commitment that we need to have. Now, having said this, I think it's important to remind Donald Trump and his friends and so on that we are no longer in 1452, when the Pope sat in Rome and signed a law authorizing King Alfonso of Portugal to invade the world and to convert all of us to Christianity. And that those who failed or refused to be converted should be killed, their wives seized, and their properties, taken from them and so on. We are not in that era. We are not in 1884 when Otto von Bismarck invited his fellow European leaders and they sat in Bonn, put the map of Africa on the table, used pencils and drew lines to create their spheres of influence. We've passed that stage. We have actually passed the stage where the king of Belgium could claim the whole of the Congo as his personal property. We've passed that stage. And we've certainly passed 1948. When Lord Balfour cut Palestine into two and gave part of Palestine for the establishment of the state of Israel. Now I think it's instructive for us to go back into history. You see, when the Second World War ended and the Western countries, out of their own desire, to make good what they had done to the Jews and so on, decided to create the state of Israel, a number of places were considered for the establishment of the state of Israel. One of those places is modern-day Uganda. Modern-day Uganda was considered as a place for the establishment of the state of Israel. Argentina was also considered for the establishment of the state of Israel. And then eventually, they decided, because the British had mandate over Palestine, to give part of Palestine for the establishment of the state of Israel. Now, this history must not be lost on us. It's a very important history. This is the history that belies the claim that Palestine is land which was bequeathed to the Zionists by God. What about Uganda? What about Argentina and so on? This history is a history that we ought to remember. Now, what we are discussing today is not just the attack on Iran by an apartheid occupationist force. That's what we are discussing. We are discussing the whole architecture of West Asia and the Middle East. We are discussing the right of a people to govern themselves without interference. And we are discussing the equality of nations, the principles which underline the equality of nations and so on. For anybody to glorify Israel at this time must amount not just to total recklessness, but complete disregard for the values of humanity. Listen, as we speak now, 70,000 Palestinians, 2/3 of whom are women and children, have been slaughtered in cold blood in Gaza. Don't lose sight of that fact. 70,000 Palestinians, 2/3 of them, women and children, have been slaughtered in Gaza. Last night, I was watching television. I was watching CNN. I wasn't watching Al Jazeera. I was watching CNN. What is happening? The Israelis have taken over the distribution of relief items and so on to these Palestinians who have been displaced, whose homes have been bombed, whose schools have been destroyed, and so on. So they've created centers for the distribution of aid. And then when information goes out that there is food at these centers, and the Palestinians start trooping to the centers to go and take food and water, they open fire on them. Who can justify this? Innocent and armed Palestinians rushing for food and water, they open fire on them and kill them. And sometimes 70 people a day, sometimes 100 people a day, and so on. Who can justify this? Now, that is not all. I want to just a few examples. You see, Palestinians who lost their homes, who were victims of the Nakba, and so 1948, and so on, who are refugees in other countries, have no right of return to their homeland. Palestinians, they have no right of return to their homeland. But anybody anywhere in the world, in Ghana, in Afghanistan, in Togo, anywhere, who claims to be a Jew has automatic right of return to Palestine. Does that make sense to you? That Palestinians who are exiled as a result of Nakba and so on are not allowed to return to their homeland. But anybody anywhere in the world can be a national of Germany, can be a national of Czechoslovakia, anywhere, who claims to be a Jew has automatic right of return. Does that make sense? Now, we are talking about the possibility, and here we are talking about the possibility of Iran making a nuclear bomb, producing a nuclear bomb. Possibility. Because even the Israeli Prime Minister himself says that Iran is only a few months, sometimes it's a few weeks away from producing a bomb. That's what he says. That's the allegation. Okay. Now, be that as it may, Iran has signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Iran's nuclear facilities are subject to inspection by the International Atomic Energy Agency. They are inspecting Iran's, nuclear facility and so on. They are inspecting it on a constant basis. They issue reports on a regular basis and so on. They haven't produced a nuclear weapon yet. Israel admits that they haven't produced a nuclear weapon yet. Israel has produced a nuclear weapon, has not signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And if you remember, in the late 1960s or 1970s, an Israeli who was working on the nuclear facility actually disclosed to the world what Israel was doing. You remember? You will remember. He was arrested, imprisoned, put in solitary confinement, and so on. After so many years, he was released. The first time he granted an interview, he was locked back in. This is an Israeli citizen. Okay? Israeli citizen. In fact, the estimates now, the last time I checked last night, the estimates now, that Israel has 90 nuclear warheads. 90, not one. 90 nuclear bombs. The last time I checked, yesterday, 90. Iran has none. Now, if you are looking for an irresponsible state in the Middle East, is it Iran or is it Israel? The record of Israel is there for everybody. The United Nations, not me, not Iran, not Palestine. The United Nations has declared Israel as an apartheid state. Apartheid state. What does that mean? Simply put, it means that Israel has separate laws which govern the life of Israelis and separate laws which govern the lives of Arabs, even Israeli Arabs. You understand? It is an apartheid state. It's a racist state. Now, it is significant, and again, I checked yesterday, and you can Google now, that 70% of Israeli citizens are opposed to the war in Gaza. 70%. 70% of Israeli citizens are opposed to the war. Okay? So for those of you who like to talk about democracy and how Israel is a democratic state and so on, when 70% of the population is opposed to the war in Gaza, and the government is doing what it's doing against the will of the people, how is that democratic? How is that a democratic state? I cannot understand. Now, statements made by Israeli officials themselves are very clear on this matter. You know, the Israeli Minister of Defense, 2 days ago, granted an interview in which he said that the spiritual leader of Iran has lost his right to exist. I'm sure you are all familiar with that. That he has no right to exist. Which in other words means that he must be assassinated. Okay. The Israeli Prime Minister was asked on Israeli national television his reaction to what his defense minister has said. The Israeli Prime Minister's response was that nobody, no Iranian, must be granted immunity from death. Benjamin